How you doing today, guys? What I want to do today is talk about my newest chainsaw. And before I do, I just want to show you what you're looking at in front of you here. This is the results of 2 charges on my Husqvarna T535i XP. So this is 2 charges of the battery. I cut all the wood you're seeing here. I cut all the wood you're seeing in this wheelbarrow. I cut all these logs you're seeing here, and this is 2 batteries worth. Some of the wood I threw on the pile, so I can't say how much, but we're just going to say some of the wood was thrown on the pile over here. And then all this stuff on the splitter as well, I cut. And so that was with 2 batteries worth, and I'm using the 5.2 amp hour battery. Now this saw comes with, you can get a smaller battery, which I don't remember the size exactly, and there's also a bigger one that's 9.4 amp hours, and they have backpack ones as well. But the main focus I just want to show you guys is that's a lot of wood, okay? So when people do reviews of these saws and they're talking about how much you can cut a lot, you know, with a battery. What's the secret to cutting a lot? Make sure you know how to sharpen a chainsaw. This saw has what Husqvarna calls a 12-inch bar, but if you look at it, it's actually more like a 10.5-inch bar by the time you put that on the end of the dog. So it's an 11-inch bar, but if you move it to the end of the dog, it's more like a 10.5-inch bar. And the first thing I want to say is if you can get a log on that bar, it's going to cut through it quickly. You know, you're not going to be like, oh, this is so slow, this is horrible. If you can fit the log on that bar, it'll cut it. It'll cut bigger ones as well, and it'll cut them fine. But if you want to really be happy about this chainsaw, make sure it's smaller than the bar and have at it, Hoss. Just to show you guys the kind of stuff I was cutting, this log here is, looks like that one's about 7 inches in diameter. And, you know, no big deal at all. This is mostly sugar maples, but here's a little bit of birch. So this is the type of stuff. This is the type of stuff I was cutting. And guys, the saw is so light. I mean, it is so light. You don't have the engine running all the time. You're not breathing in the fumes. You don't have to pull a starter cord every time you want to use the saw. All the things come together with this little saw, the little saw that make it a really awesome firewood gathering, or, you know, this is a top handle version, so this is designed for arborists. They have basically the same saw with a rear handle, which is what a homeowner would use. The first thing I want you guys to notice about this saw is it's built like a normal chainsaw. It's got the safety on top and the button on the bottom, but there's no weird, you know, a lot of these electric saws I see, there's like some weird button on the side you gotta push to make the saw cut, you know, as a safety. Husqvarna did a really nice job making this look, feel, and act just like a regular gas chainsaw, but without the gas. And I really appreciate that, and I just want to thank Husqvarna for that. The controls, well, you've got your battery here, and all you need to do to switch your battery is you just squeeze it and you can push from the back. So this is your battery, and like I said, I've got the 5.2 amp hour battery. You can go up to, I think they have a 9.2 or a 9.4, and then what they have is they have these backpack batteries that you gotta push it a little hard to get it in there. They have these backpack batteries where it's basically a wire that runs to a backpack battery that I think is like 15, almost 20 amp hours. But I mean, if you're trying to compare this to a gas saw, if you're running this on the eco mode, we'll talk about that in a second, this 5.2 amp hour battery seems pretty darn close to a full tank of gas. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, I've heard using a bigger battery will give you more power because there's more reserves to pull from, which is awesome. But for a little saw like this, if you're using this, if you're an arborist and you're up in a tree, or if you're a horticulturist like me and you're doing some pruning on the ground, you kind of want the lightest saw possible. So, you know, like I said, if you're only using the length of this bar, the 5.2 amp hour battery is fine. You may, you know, want to have a second one to flip it out. But I mean, the weight and the weight distribution is really awesome with that battery. This does have a chain brake, so when it's like this, it's not going to run. You have to push that up. So if heaven forbid something comes back, there was one time when a branch fell and knocked that down, and I started pressing the button, and there's a little warning sign here, and I couldn't figure out why that little light, there's a red light there, I couldn't figure out why that was beeping until after about a minute I was like, oh, you know, and I had to flick this back up to make the chain spin. As far as the controls go, all you've got is you've got your power switch right here, so you just hit that to turn it on, and then you're good to go. If I squeeze the trigger, she's going to go. The only other option is you've got this green E for eco mode. So if you hit that, it's somehow designed to maximize the life of the battery. So the saw does run a little bit slower. But I gotta be honest, guys, I like the eco mode because it's a lot quieter, not a lot quieter, it's a little bit quieter. The battery lasts longer, and you just don't feel like, you know, everything's in super fast motion. So the eco mode, you know, I have the weed whacker as well, and the weed whacker has eco mode as well. So with eco mode, you can just peg it, and you know, you're not going too fast. You know, not that too much power is ever a bad thing, but I like the eco mode. And then, you know, you'll see if you don't touch it, it'll stay on for a while, and then eventually it has an auto shut-off feature. I don't know what that is, but I can tell you from what I've used, it's long enough that it's not a pain in the butt where if you put it down to pick another branch up, it shuts off too soon. There it goes. It's long enough that it doesn't shut off too soon, but it's also not so long that you're like, Jesus, is this thing going to shut off or what? So I think they did a really nice job on that as well. And then there is no gas tank. Okay, we're battery. The only other thing you guys, you know, need to know is, you know, there is a chain oil tank right here, and this thing pretty much sips oil. You know, so that's the tank. I don't know if you guys can see in there or not. I've been trying very hard not to over tighten the cap on the chain oil. So it comes with this little scrunch. I hope this is the right one. And all you need to do, you see how the chain's a little loose right there, all you need to do if you want to tighten it is you just back it off a little bit. I guess it's this guy here. You tighten her up. You see how it's kind of getting tight. And then whenever you're tightening chains, you want to lift the tip of the bar nose up, and then go ahead and tighten her down. And I've been trying very hard not to over tighten that as well. Okay. But I mean, that's it, guys. There's no trip to the gas station. You know, if this saw was sitting for months, you'd have to charge the battery. But you know, there's no trip to the gas station, and there's no pulling it like 15, 20 pulls to get it started. And I know you young guys are like, big deal. But you know, you get to a point in life where you're like, this kind of sucks. And to be able to just push a button, and you're live is awesome. And I'm sure you guys up in trees, you know, I think it's awesome. I don't know why I don't see, you know, battery powered saws more often. This is the 5.2 amp hour battery. They have bigger ones, they have smaller ones. If you're getting the rear handle saw, if you're a homeowner or looking for a ground saw and you get the rear handle saw has a 14-inch bar. This is the 12-inch bar, so it's going to be a couple inches longer. But I would say if you're using this as a ground, not this as a ground saw, if you're getting a ground saw, you know, get the bigger battery because you're going to want the torque to pull through larger logs. To charge this, all I've been doing is I just basically, you know, if you've been watching my videos, you may have seen this in the backdrop. You just put it right on this charger here. It lights up, and this one's fully charged, so it may kick on for a moment, but it should just kick off. If it's empty, a fan will kick on, and whichever segment is charging will start blinking. And I've timed it. It takes about 50 minutes from a dead battery to charge this battery. And this charger is the QC. It's a quick charger. They have a 330. There's a 500 version for the really big batteries. But you can also get, you can get a charger that plugs into your cigarette lighter. It's going to take longer to charge. You can get a slow, like a trickle charger, which is, you know, less money. This one I think was around $120, $130. At some point I will purchase a second battery, but honestly, you know, for the way I'm using things, you know, one battery's been perfectly fine so far. The other really cool thing about a saw with a 12-inch bar is you've only got that many teeth to sharpen. So sharpening this saw is a dream. It really doesn't, it doesn't take very long. So, you know, we just go ahead and put her on the vise here, mark the tooth we start with. Now the chain on this saw is a 3/8 inch pitch chain, which is a fairly common size. If you take 3 rivets and divide by 2, it's 3/8 of an inch. The gauge, the width of the metal that goes between the bar rails is 0.43, so it's a little lighter weight chain. I've reached the stage in life where I will no longer be able to sharpen saws without wearing my magnifying safety glasses. So we're just going to do one side real quick here, and this is what I consider just a touch-up sharpening. So we're just doing a couple strokes, and you know, we're going to be back in action. It's just, you would be amazed how quickly I end up getting around this bar. We may have to do a little speed up because I know this is like watching paint dry. So I just sharpened all the cutters on this side. So now I can flip the saw over, sharpen the cutters on the other side. All right, before we go out, we should probably put a little bit of bar and chain oil in this puppy. So there you go. And then what I've been doing is I've been putting my bar and chain oil in Aunt Jemima, an old Aunt Jemima syrup container. It's got to be Aunt Jemima, folks, no other brands. And is this diet? This is regular Aunt Jemima. But real easy to just, you know, she uses very little bar and chain oil, and this way I don't end up making a mess. And I'm about a 1/2 inch low there. That's going to be plenty for what we need. But this saw literally sips bar and chain oil as well, and the chain stays perfectly lubed. When I've been reading about electric chainsaws, a lot of people talk about how quiet they are, and I will say that electric chainsaws are quieter because you're not using the trigger as often. Electric chainsaws only make noise when you're physically pulling the trigger, and the noise levels may be lower than gas chainsaws, but you're still above 85 decibels, which anything above 85 decibels can hurt your ears. So I do recommend, you know, using your ear protection when you're using the electric chainsaws. And I've gotten to the point in life where I pretty much double up my ear protection no matter what power tool I'm using. Google something called noise-induced hearing loss and tinnitus, and you may want to do that as well. The other thing I want to show you guys is these 3M X5A earmuffs. I can't really tell you who makes the best earmuff out there, but I can tell you that these have a 32, I think it's a 30 30 to 32 decibel noise reduction rating, whereas most of the ones out there are 25. So I'd recommend, if you're around power equipment a lot, have a look at these earmuffs as well. So I have the plugs and the muffs. Let's do this. One of the cool things that Husqvarna does is they publish the noise levels of their equipment on the website, and I'm really impressed that they actually publish the noise level at the operator's ear, you know, give or take. I think it's 2 or 3 decibels. But let's just look at the noise levels of this puppy, and we're going to start with regular mode. And they talk about, you know, the distance to the operator's ear. So obviously the closer, the louder. So let's see, if I'm cutting, I'm going to be around here. So hopefully you guys can see that. You know, this is a little closer, but this is about where I'd be. Okay, so that was with the higher setting. And then we're going to go ahead and put it in eco mode. And I know this isn't very scientific, but just to give you guys an idea. You hear the difference there? It's a little quieter, a little calmer. So that's actually what I usually use this saw in, is the eco mode. But I just want you guys to know that yes, they are quieter than gas, but they're still loud. You still need hearing protection. Unfortunately, I cut a lot of the big stuff already, but just to give you an idea of, you know, how this thing works, this is with, we'll start with eco mode, okay? So that's what eco mode looks like, and then we'll take eco mode off. My depth gauges are a touch too low there, so it cuts quicker, but it's a little more grabby. But that's what you're looking at, guys. Regular mode, I mean, it's definitely faster, but it's also a lot louder, and just kind of feels out of control. I really enjoy using this eco mode. Now, I'm closer to 50 than 20, so maybe that's the reason. I think that's pretty cool. What? What? I can't hear you! Double hearing protection definitely makes a difference. I keep my plugs in my shirt pocket, and I just keep these wherever the tool is. The only other feature I forgot to mention about the saw is it does have this little gauge here, which they all do these days. Big whoop, this is just their version. But if you press this button, it'll show you how many bars you've got left. And I swear, guys, if you're using eco mode and cutting stuff like I showed you when this video started, that battery's gonna last a long time. When I was on my second battery, it got to be past 5 o'clock, and I was kind of hoping the battery would run out because I was getting tired of cutting wood. But it hung in there for quite a while. So this is my review of the little chainsaw that could. And I just want to, say hats off to Husqvarna. They got everything right with this saw. You can talk about other brands are more powerful, bigger battery, yada yada. This looks like a chainsaw, cuts like a chainsaw, feels like a chainsaw, has a little thingy on top like a chainsaw, a little thingy on the bottom. It's just like using a top handle chainsaw. And again, if you're a homeowner or looking for a ground saw, they make what I believe are the same guts of this saw with a handle farther back, and you can get a 14-inch bar in a bigger battery. You can get as big a battery as you want. You can get a smaller battery, but I really like this saw. So that's going to conclude the review for today. Thanks for watching, folks, and have yourselves a wonderful day. We'll see you soon. Take care.